Hi there and welcome back to the channel today. Today we're going to look at 8 on the birth chart. I hope you've managed to look at the other videos leading into this. Just the reminder that the birth charts are not the be-all and end-all of the individual. They offer a glimpse into the inside of the personality or the workings of the personality. So this is our second last video for the numbers on the birth chart, and after this one, we do the number 9, and then we're going to take a look at arrows on the birth chart. Today, though, because it's a short video, what I've done is I actually have done a birth chart for Zoe Kravitz, just for something totally different, and just a little bit of a brief insight. But anyway, let's carry on. So the number 8 is the most active of all the numbers at the end of the spiritual feelings plane. It's a number of wisdom being expressed through loving actions, and it's symbolized, of course, by a double vertical square. Of course, my little number 8 here is circular, but typically speaking, it should be actually the two squares together. So it has it contains within it an energy of practicality and independence. It also carries the potential to do the opposite when living destructively, and that's always important to know. It's said to carry the energy of power. I associate the number 8 with the number of the magician, actually, if you like, a bit with like the Midas touch is how I explain it. It offers the potential for manifestation. People that are associated with a ruling number of 8, for example, I tend to find to be very good at manifesting, particularly wealth and abundance. But the number 8 is also associated with wisdom and the whole idea of infinite impossibilities. No, possibilities is what I mean. So as I said, it does bring with it a desire for independence, at least, and loving action that is combined with wisdom, the knowledge. It's a number of duality, that of heightened awareness and associated. I guess the best way to explain it is with the wisdom of independence, okay? Because when we have independence, when we understand that we have choices as independent people. That doesn't mean that there's a necessity for aloneness. Being independent doesn't mean loneliness. It means acknowledging choices and seeking balance. So often a lot of people think it's impossible to have a healthy relationship where you've got two independent individuals. No, you can still do that, but the people choose to be together because they admire, respect, and value each other, and there is not a need. They're not dependent on each other for part of their self-fulfillment. They can still be emotionally fulfilled, but there is a choice involved. So when we talk about the wisdom of independence, this is what we're talking about. So once again, it's a practical number. It enables a person to learn the lessons quicker or much faster than those people who have an 8 that's missing on their birth chart, or if they don't have a number 8 as their ruling number, or even their day number. If they have a day number of an 8, that will go some way to balancing any absences of 8 on the birth chart, but we'll talk about that later. So people with a single 8 on their birth chart, they tend to be methodical and meticulous when they're living positively. If they're living negatively, they can be apathetic, and instability, of course, can prevail. However, from the positive perspective, they tend to be tidy, they pay attention to details, they can be very efficient, quite efficient actually, and they quickly identify the most efficient ways of working to get results. However, if they do start to live negatively, that can impact, obviously, negatively. We can see unstable and reactive behaviours, and we can see frequent job changes, frequent changing of addresses, and even changes of interests. But when living positively, this suggests really good management skills within the work situation. So the power of the 8 is magnified actually when you've got 2 8s on the birth chart, and this is because the powers of assessment or discernment they have a heightened power of it, basically. It can be unsettling for some people, but if the person is living positively, it can be extremely beneficial. This perceptiveness, though, of course, can't be allowed to make them dictatorial over others. And if they become overconfident because they're so perceptive, this can actually lead to emotional dysfunction as well. So the other thing is, so yes, they are very astute, very quick, quite intuitive. They will often seek travel opportunities as a source of further developing their knowledge and wisdom, and they can become frustrated if they're unable to do this when they're young. So the point is that as they mature as well, it can lend itself to feelings of entrapment, if you like, if they're unable to do this travel. It's kind of a soul urge, and it's with this travel that they find their peace of mind. So whether they're in a relationship or not, travel would certainly form part of their desires for freedom and just for personal growth. So that should be encouraged and supported. So where there's 3/8 on the chart, this desire for travel and exploration is magnified and expanded upon. And if they're unable to do that, there can be a real restlessness that you may as well say goes through their personality. They can actually develop feelings that life is pointless, and they can need considerable love and guidance to encourage them to maintain this positive outlook. And part of the key learning for them is to realize that life itself is a journey, and it's going to go on regardless of whether or not they're enjoying it, and that their experience of life is going to be far more joyful if they're able to change their attitude towards it and not lose themselves in pessimism. So as I say, there's always a positive and a negative. If they start living in the negative, they may find themselves complaining about things without even having made any effort or trying to achieve a goal. But those people that choose to live positively, they're the ones that will gain the great independence and the wisdom that they're seeking. They still enjoy this busy life, but they've got this inner stability and a joyful approach to life. And it's this joyful approach to life that helps win them friends and influences, if you like, which of course is going to bode well for their social and working environment. So let's all give a big sigh of relief that none of us who are alive now are likely to be around when these young folk become adults or even teenagers. We won't expect to see 4/8s on the birth chart until the 8th of August 2088. And these children we can expect are going to be really hyperactive as well as restless. So not that anybody here is going to be a parent to these children, I would be highly surprised. But if they were to be a parent of a child with 4/8s, you would be advised to never force that child to sit still or to tell them to sit still, because it's going to be a completely unnatural state for them, and it will lead them to excessive frustration, irrational behaviour, because this pent-up emotion needs to be released. So the parents would need to be teaching them at a very early age to develop this sound sense of direction, to focus their attention, and basically to be taken out a lot. They'd need to be taken on a lot of social outings, even if it's out to the park or whatever, until they're old enough to actually travel themselves and do it independently. They need that outing, that break from the routine, for them to stay well. If there's an absence of the 8 on the birth chart, it's not really a big deal. It just signifies that the people without an 8 on their birth chart, they need to actually consciously and deliberately apply themselves to achieving wisdom and the independence to allow their lives to become more fulfilling and rewarding. And this, of course, is going to take organisation and practical methods and approaches to learning. So, yeah, once again, not a huge big deal. So I was a little bit stuck today trying to work out who to do a birth chart on for a demonstration. So I decided to go with Zoe Kravitz. Many people may not know who she is. I would think many people will know who she is as well. She's the daughter of Lisa Bonet, who used to be in a TV series many years ago. More recently has divorced from Jason Momoa, And Zoe is the daughter of Lisa Bonet and Lenny Kravitz, a singer. So when we look at her birth chart, there's nothing super duper amazing about it, just that she was born in 1988. And we can see when we look at her birth chart, of course, there's an imbalance there. Most of the numbers, when we talk about most of the numbers, it would be easy for people, if they're not familiar with birth charts, to look at the body plane, which is the practical and doing plane, and think this is the plane that is the most loaded, and therefore she would be most active, as opposed to thinking and feelings. However, this would be incorrect because, of course, we reduce everything down to a primary number. So the physical plane represents a 1. The 9 plane is her most loaded, the 9 plane. The mind plane is a total of number 9, and that makes it the most loaded plane on her birth chart. So we can gather from this immediately that she's more of a thinker than a doer and a feeler. So she would be very much in her head. She would make all of her assessments and decisions probably based on logical rationale, but there would be an aspect of her, I would imagine, that would make her a little bit analytical and an overthinker. Because she's got this low number on the spiritual plane, which is the feelings, and I say low because it's a 2, but the 2 is actually an intuitive number anyway. So the 2 is a good number to have. But also, because she is born as a Sagittarius, she's going to bring feelings and passion through that counterbalances. Where I'm going with this is the sun sign counterbalances a lot of what we've got happening here on the spiritual plane. I haven't done her name numerology, so we would do name numerology on the actual Zoe, and then we would look at the inner and outer expression of that and how that helps her or doesn't help her or compounds any thinking or intellectual overanalysis leads to paralysis, remember? The 3 1s on the birth chart, that actually indicates that she is a chatterbox. It would be really interesting to know from people that might know her if she actually is, this chatterbox, very bright and interesting, lots of varied activities and very fun, and she would love to actually, the indications of the 3 1s is that they love to bring people into their situation and have fun with them. So lots of laughter, social interaction happening there. At the same time, once again, we've got an arrow on this chart, and the arrow, of course, you will have seen, it seems to have come up quite a lot in recent charts. It's the arrow of frustrations. And I think perhaps this is somewhat symbolic of people that have been born since about 1980, is where they have this sense of values. And, quite honestly, having been brought up and raised in the 1980s, we were taught that people have got rights. We're taught all these things about what life should and shouldn't look like, and what indicates freedom and all of this kind of stuff. And the reality is that when push comes to shove, yes, we can have these values. They do inform our sense of morality and all the rest of it. However, we have to retain a little bit of flexibility around them. It doesn't mean dropping our standards, but it does mean releasing expectation on others to meet our criteria. And by that, I'm talking about in the peripherals. I mean, if you're going to get in an intimate relationship, you actually want to have at least a mind connection where you have agreed values and you can trust each other. But on the whole, excuse me while I have a cough. But on the whole, what happens with the arrow of frustrations is that these people invariably will have expectations of others to meet what they feel is right or wrong, and then they are invariably let down and disappointed. So the keys for Zoe, and hopefully she's learned this through her parents, is to release expectation of others, recognise and appreciate when they see people where they have shared values with, and to acknowledge them as being important to them. And they will find life not to be quite as frustrating. They will manage to avoid some disappointment. So, my friends, that's it for number 8 this week. Next week, we'll be looking at number 9. Hopefully, I'll be able to keep the videos quite short and brief. And from there, we'll be going on to look at the arrows on the birth chart. But in the meantime, thank you for being part of my journey today. Have a blessed day, blessed week. Catch you on the next video. Bye bye for now.